But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on that.
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters. It is Friday night and it is the Fab Four night. So it's good evening to Steve Hasty, Keith Patterson and to Mitch. You okay, lads?
Sounds yeah, great.
Good to see you. Plenty of sun up in the northeast and more than enough sun for Mitch all year round. So no need to go through the weather tonight, Mitch. We're getting plenty of sun here. Sorry. I know you'll be double the temperature, but we're happy with what we've got.
And about 4 times the humidity tonight. I'm trying an innovative liquid cooling system for my phone. I've got it propped up against a cold can.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. Great stuff. Anyway, plenty to discuss as always tonight, and the floor will be open for you guys as well to get involved. There will be some of your usual segments, of course. Tweet of the week will be coming up, as well. Tune Lookalikey and Troll of the Week as well to keep Julie Baker happy. And plenty to discuss as always. And let's get the elephant out of the room, I suppose. Let's discuss last week's show first, Steve Hasty. And obviously the ramifications of last week's show are still rumbling on. There's been plenty of activity on Twitter, which I've deliberately kept out of and just observed as and when. It's been half term. I've had other things to do than discuss Newcastle United on Twitter, as well as doing the show. So I've kept out of it and just watched it develop. And we were all, of course, eagerly anticipating the big news to come from Ben Jacobs, which of course he announced on Friday. So in a nutshell, Steve, how did you think it went last week? You've had the dust to settle. We've met up and had a pint. How did you think last week went?
We did meet up and have a pint, didn't we? Dear me. Our Sunday's supposed to be like that, Steve. Dear me.
Did you recover? Did you recover?
I recovered around about Tuesday, I think.
Well, this was the session last week. What a great afternoon we had. We went to the Dog and Parrot, which is, of course, where I can be found on a match day normally doing me pre-match talkings. And in no particular order, the guy sitting next to me, there's Bob, who was one of the top security guys at Newcastle United for many, many years. Bob was, the man who looked after Sir Bobby Robson in his final days at the club as well. But close man at the club. Big shout out to Bob. Obviously, me and Steve Hasty sitting together. The guy on his knees, Paul McElduff. Those of you who are into your non-legal know he's the chairman, of course, of an owner of Whitley Bay. Right at the back there, you'll see Ando and his good lady, John Anderson, of course. If he ever gets technology right, we might get him on the show at some point. And Mick Lowe's, of course. You might just see over the top there, there's Kev as well. Used to be the manager at Nine Bar, and one of our pals sitting there with us as well. So it was a great afternoon, obviously full of football, full of football. And yes, Steve Hasty learned a valuable lesson. Don't drink with Steve Wraith in rounds.
That's right. That's absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. I'd forgotten. I also learned the lesson of, always have more than two scrambled eggs and a bit of toast before you go out. Eat something.
To avoid getting scrambled.
Exactly. No, it was great. It was great to actually get together, wasn't it? And chew the fat with some lads who really, really know their football. And it was interesting because some of the conversation did come on to how the show had gone on Friday night. There was a lot of debate. All positive, by the way. All positive. People were intrigued about who Keith was and the questions that they'd wanted to ask us for months and months. Finally managed to have a chat about that. But in terms of the show itself, I thought that it was combative. I thought that despite what some people on Twitter might say, I thought that it was relatively polite. I thought that Keith held his corner. Keith got a lot of things off his chest, which I'm sure he wanted to do. But we also wanted to hear from Ben, and I think we heard in spades from Ben his opinion on a number of things, some of which I don't agree with entirely, some of which I find bamboozling, and as the week's gone on, has left me with a taste in my mouth that tells me that. My opinion of Ben in terms of the, how do I put it, being a kind of mouthpiece, if you like, for the EPL, was sort of reinforced. If I was just going on what I was hearing and what suddenly and what has spun out over the last 72 hours or more. I found it baffling when he came out and said there was some big news, and he talked about a number of issues last week. There was one particular issue that he did mention that I wished I'd commented on. I did speak to Keith on Saturday morning about it, and I wished I had raised a reply to Ben. But I didn't, because quite frankly, he had spoken that much and he had said so much that I was at a loss to actually understand some of it. It was literally, it was machine gun, wasn't it? It was sort of all guns blazing. It was like an episode of Peaky Blinders at times, to be perfectly honest. But it was great. It was really, really good. Ben has this knack of being able to answer a question 3 or 4 ways. And it's a skill. It draws you in, it then spits you out, and then it leaves you wondering at the end actually what the answer was. This little throwaway remark that he came up with, which was that there was some news that was going to blow the whole thing apart. It was going to be bad for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, etc. And that baffled us, and we wondered what it could be. I think most of it, three or four of us, we've chatted about that as the week's gone on, and put our own opinion forward on where it's coming from and what we anticipated. And I think we were right. It was to do with the UEFA bid that'd been put in by I'd say a broadcasting company in Saudi Arabia for the Champions League, and he spoke about it at length. And I think we'll probably get on to the nitty gritty of that as the show goes on. But no, all in all, I thought that it was very, very informative for Newcastle fans. I think it helps them to shape an opinion of their own, which is important. But it also gives them an opportunity to understand exactly what Keith has been saying about competition law and about the competition case and about the way that the Premier League seem to want to conduct themselves, which as the weekend has drawn on, has seen us get drawn more and more with commentary from various people that arbitration is the answer for Newcastle fans, not the competition case. And my opinion is that is totally wrong.
Yeah, okay. Mitch, I'll come to you next, mate, because you, me and Steve really didn't have too much to say last week. So before I come to Keith, I will come to you. Give us your views about what last week's show was like, and I suppose the subsequent fallout that we've seen on social media.
I think I managed to get slightly more of a word in here and there last week. I think robust, combative, as Steve said, I think that's a good word to use. But I think it stayed within certain boundaries, and I think that was important. I've kept my opinion and feelings about Ben pretty much on the low ever since he was introduced into the equation, simply because we've got lots of mutual acquaintances out here in the Dubai village. And so at times I'm prone to being a little bit perhaps information biased. So I wanted to come into last week with a totally open mind and just hear how it played out. And that fascinated me more than anything else. To have certain things confirmed, certain things actually, in my opinion, dispelled as well that I'd been told. So, I think it was probably... I think it was brave of both Keith and Ben to enter into it like that as well. I don't think you'd see that anywhere else. And fair play to you for setting it up, Steve. I think that's it's a big thing, and I think the fallout afterwards. The thing that still dismays me, and I've said this now probably for over a year, and people are probably a bit sick of hearing it say about it, is that it's quite clear that the 13 years under Mike Ashley has left so many fissures and cracks in the fan base. And now seeing today that some of those who probably you would normally associate as being together on if you, for want of a better term, on the same side. I don't like using that about a fan base, but it's the easiest way to explain it. Now turning on each other over points and issues, and that's what we seem to be best at, is getting the guns turned on ourselves. And once the dust settles on this, there's a hell of a lot of healing still to do. And I think it's up to everybody who's blessed with a platform like this to help be part of that. And going forward in the future, if we want to talk about Newcastle United under new ownership, we've got to be as united in every way as we can be. And that's what I'm seeing on social media over the last week, is watching things being very, in my opinion, deliberately manipulated to create even further fractures and further divisions. But except it's not Ashley doing it now, because he's been a master at it for 13 years. And I think that's the biggest thing that the last week's highlighted to me, is how much reaching out and how much hard work there is to do once the dust settles on everything for us to get a truly united fan base again.
Okay, Keith, you've had a full week to take it all in. I've got to be honest with people watching as well. We don't plan the show, and I have to reiterate that we don't plan it. Even tonight's show, but any show has never been planned, and that's really been down to the fact that obviously me, Mitch, and Steve in particular know each other and have known each other for many years and dealt on fans' issues over the course of time. So we don't need to premeditate it. I mean, obviously, various things like tweet of the week, troll of the week, and the different segments, they're planned because people send them in and or we go and pick them up. But the debate that we'll have on this show, no matter who's on, whether it's you who's been on as a guest in the past, whether it's been Mickey Edmondson, whoever, we don't plan it. And last week was a shock to me in a lot of ways. I know you tried to send us some emails to put up on the screen, which I couldn't do. I didn't even read them. I didn't have time. So last week when you came out and went, bam, it was a shock to me. And I think some people on Twitter realised that. People were going, wow, you see the shock on Steve's face. He didn't see it coming. Neither did Ben. But you know, it wasn't premeditated. So, you know, I was intrigued. It was a social study for me. I haven't watched it back, but it's because I listened intently to what you were saying, as the other two guys did. But what was your feeling when you came off? What's your subsequent feeling from what's happened this week? Because I believe Ben's now blocked you on social media. And, you know, what did you make of these big news? There's 3 questions for you, Keith, from me.
What I think when I came off thinking he was exactly what I thought he was when I went on. On 17th of November last year, he had our letter, and that letter was important to us because when fans out of their own pocket, despite what trolls would like to say, but when fans out of their own pocket produce 5 figures and start putting your claims together, that's you know, I've worked out a basic claim to put a claim together in order to do a letter for action, be 50,000 with any top QC. And then you've got 2 solicitors groups working for us as well. It hurts your pocket, but it also might hurt your credibility in your families. So, for example, Gordon's watching tonight, and I hope his missus isn't, but Gordon didn't tell his missus what he spent on this so far. And he dropped out a few months ago to go back to work, and I give him a pat on the back.
Hi, Gordon. Well done, mate.
So Gordon went back to work, and then a few weeks ago, he gives a ring and he was back. But you know what we've put into it's considerable. But I've spent nearly a year of my life without wages doing this. So some people say I'm aggressive. Well, if you've played football against us, you'll agree with that. You know, I fight for everything I've got, and I fight for everything I've won, and I didn't start this thing off to, I don't know, be a patsy for the fans. What I did it for was because I had competition experience, and commercially, I probably have a lot more grounded than most people. And what I wanted to do was fight for fans. And I didn't want to make a mug of it. And if you think how hard I've fought, and how, you know, one guy said, "Yes, did you ever go to sleep?" And you've asked us that, Steve, a few times. Do you ever sleep?
Yeah.
And you know, there's times I'm answering tweets at 2, 3 o'clock, and then I come back on at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. And I don't want praise for it. What I want is maybe respect, because when I do a letter to the EPL and they turn around and tell me that under no circumstances can I release that, there was a bit of a spat happened, and that's what I was getting at, and that's what the first part of that show was. And if somebody puts me in a sponsored food race at the supermarket, I'll knock every tin over I can, and I'll fill where I can. If I go in a yard of ale, I drink as much beer as I can. If I play passing the parcel, I fight for a chair, I fight for the parcel. Like everything I do, I give 100%. And when I get on a show with a bloke who I think's a crank and still think he's a crank, I'm going to tell the truth, because I've always been brought up to tell the truth and fear no man. And that's how I live my life. I live my life just saying things as they are. And if people don't like that, then get over it. Because the one thing I've done is, and Gordon will confirm this, we've afforded the right to do what us two fans think was right. It might be wrong at the end. At the end, we might be proven wrong. And people might look at it and say, well, they got that totally wrong. But we've done what we think's right. And if, you know, last week, Ben levelled at me that none of the competition action was to do with me, and none of the current action is my action. And really, that's just horseshit out of somebody's backside, because being blunt with it, Robert O'Donoghue looked at the case and built a case up, and he says that will win, and still believe he's right. Then the club were introduced to us, and Gordon will come on screen. He can type something on the bottom now to say Gordon Stein and me went into a room one day with another witness, and the party that we met were a legal team, and they didn't know anything about competition law. And they said that. They said, we're not competition experts, and they wanted to know what our points were and why competition would be key to winning this takeover. And as a layman, because that's what I am, I'm not a solicitor, and I'm not ever pretending to be something I'm not, but I'm a person who's bought tens of millions of pounds worth of competition experience. And so what I do is I've been levied with finding the best competition people out there. And that's why I find it quite easy to know where to go to do this. And I did that. I produced a letter. We did it out of our own funds. Some guys that helped us at the start tried to do it through a fundraise. I'll say it again tonight because I have no shame in saying it. If that fundraise had been successful and those guys at War Fund had succeeded under Peter Baker, you'd have had a different owner by now. And I really mean that, because that would have run October last year. The case would have, in O'Donoghue's words, would have been out in February, March. You know, the case would have been completed, but it probably would have got through the courts back end at the start next year. That's why the EPL ran away from it, and that's why the EPL are running now. But you try telling a fan base that, and you try telling a bloke who's paid clearly by behind to disrupt what we're doing. And sometimes, and what I found this week is, come back to your question, Steve, is sometimes it's harder telling the truth to a captive audience than what it is to tell lies. And if you compare that, I said to you the other day, if I was raising something that's topical, like a pledge, and I said, look, I want £1 million off you, and I want it this week, and if I get it, we can buy 45% in Newcastle United. That's quite a strong statement, and I think the fan base would come forward with $1 million. But if Steve Acey stood up and says, oh, before you do that, that Patterson bloke has just been on, he's been to jail for actually misappropriating funds. And also, his partner is in jail now for misappropriating funds. What'll happen is the £1 million that was coming will go 500,000, 200,000, and it'll go to nothing. Because if Steve Acey tells a lie and I tell the truth, your lies will work better than mine. And by the time they finish listening to Steve Acey's story, they'll say, oh, he took 10 million. By the time they go down the pub, come off the pub, it's 20 million. And that's the problem, that you've got someone like Ben who, if you ask him a question, he never answers it. Never asks a question. I said, do you know anything about competition law? And he waffled on. He went around 4 seconds. He started talking about behind when we're on about competition law. And he said, if I need to find out about that and go and ask somebody, the truthful answer to that is, no, I don't know bugger all. You know, I'm a novice. And the thing is, he made himself look inept, because what he did was, I had competition people watching the show last week, and what they said was, he's clearly bluffing. And he said that our case didn't look like the club's. It's the same thing, according to O'Donoghue. And I'd rather listen to a competition QC than listen to a chancer. But I've got to admit, what I came off last show's week thinking was, what has he got? Because I left last week's show, I'd already heard what he's released of Steve Hasty and Neil Mitchell 2 weeks ago. You two were talking to us about this, and you two told us that the UEFA were going to probably take a lesser offer or a lesser bid. You describe what's in that article to the take, right? And that's what's good about this circle, because people don't bullshit and people talk the truth. And when I came off the show last week, 3 times he tried to railroad what we were saying by saying, well, wait till you say what I've got. Wait till you say I've got. And what he was saying was that what he's got will derail the takeover. And that to me was, holy shit, I hope it doesn't. You know what I mean? I don't know everything. And the club don't know everything. The buyers don't. We can just surmise, we get as much information as we can. But Ben gave us the impression, he put his name on the line, really. And all week, I said to people, I said, do you know what it is? My logical brain kicked in. I said, if there's a great story out there that can smash a takeover, I think Luke Edwards would have nicked it off him, to be fair. But if there was a great story that could do that, I really believe Ben would have wet his pants and published the story. Because he's never published any stories of any credibility for a long time. So if there was a great story that could smash the takeover, I think he would do it. And what he keeps saying is, look, you know, I hope for Newcastle fans it goes well. And I'm thinking, bollocks to you. So all along, I know he's leaked my story. Now, what you don't know is, and what you might add some stories, you might wonder why I laboured the points for the first 10 minutes of last week, is because there was a big argument erupted where the Premier League insisted that Keith Patterson and Gordon Steen leaked the Newcastle United EPL case. You know it made television, and you know that on the 17th of November 2020, there was an uproar because all of a sudden, Tyne Tees, BBC run it, Mike Ashley, Newcastle United, had taken the Premier League to court. That was leaked by the Premier League in a letter to me. So my 9-page letter had that in. They said, we won't expedite your case because this will come behind it. So I'm sat with that. I look at Gordon, he looks at me. We send it to Robert and the team of lawyers and competition people. We say, where do we go with this? And they say, holy God, the club's got an action against the Premier League. And they said, I don't think they should have told you that. So we didn't know what to do. And I went to a meeting at 1 o'clock. And when I was in the meeting, I had 4 texts. And you know, when Liam does his book, you'll find out who the texts were for. Some of them were significant players in this whole transaction. And they said, your letter's out there, Keith. It's been leaked by Ben Jacobs. It's on Twitter. And it's in there. And the letter basically just ridiculed us. And what I didn't like about it, what I didn't like about the time was that we'd spent a lot of money. We're just ordinary fans. Me and Gordon, I've never met him yet, but we're just ordinary blokes. We're not clever. We're not anything special. We're just 2 people that wrote to Richard Masters one day apart and met up through an article he put in the mag. And because I'd been approached by the people from Warfund to put my competition brain and my contacts to their idea of raising money through fans. When we got the letter back, we'd spent an arm and a leg on it. You know, we'd spent not hours, we'd spent days and weeks putting together this claim, and the Premier League answered it with a lot of credibility in a 9-page letter telling us to go away. It was what the QC said is clearly that letter's hurting them. Clearly they bothered about that letter. Clearly they want rid of it. What they did then was they made a move to go to somebody, a patsy, and give them it and say, right, go and discredit that letter. And that person was Ben Jacobs. So up until the show last Friday, lads, I can happily tell you now that, yeah, I was on a mission to get him to admit that letter came from him. Hence, I started with his first tweet. And the first tweet said, I spoke to the Premier League this morning. Because what I didn't want to do was squirm out of it, because he is a squirmy person. He doesn't answer anything honest, and he's a liar. So what I got him to admit was that he did the letter. Later on in the show, I don't know if you heard, he admitted that the behind letter went out to 19 clubs. Now, I told you that one of the big things I wanted to do, and O'Donoghue said to me, is we've got to get that letter confirmed that it was actually received by people. It was collective lobbying, but that we received. So we got him on 19 clubs. We got him to admit that he'd sent that he'd brought the Premier League. So what I was doing is I was doing the job. You know, I was doing the job. Call us what you want. And I've heard this week being called aggressive. Yeah, I think I'm quite aggressive. I've been called a troll, which I'm certainly not. I'm on my own. Trolls come in numbers. I'm on my own. I get trolled every day. I've been called a bully. I'm not a bully. I hate bullies. All my mates hate bullies. So people are trying to touch my buttons. I've been abused this week. I've had more crap this week than probably any week since I've done this thing. And the thing is, I've lost. I was on there, and I was nearly 11,000 people. And then just when it all happened, and Mr. Jacobs was doing all these little, he put a comment out and said, all Newcastle supporters can see what you are. You're a bully, you're a troll. And what happened is, round about then, I lost 30 followers. It was funny, we were on the number, and somebody who was working with us said, bloody hell, that's just dropped. And about 30 people fell off. And we were talking about it later, and somebody sent us a note. They said, Keith, keep going. Keep doing what you do. And he said, good, honest people like you don't lose followers. The followers lose you. And it's true that, because I'm the same bloke. It's dead easy for me to sit and go, and people just said it was brave to talk to Ben Jacobs. Well, it wasn't for me, because I just would tell the truth. You know, when you tell the truth, you don't have to have a memory. You don't have to think back too far. And if you ask us the same question in a month's time, you'll get the same answer, because you're just going to get the truth. And when you make lies up, by God, you need some memory. And I came off the show expecting a bombshell this week. And if that was a bombshell, oh Christ, I hope if England ever gets attacked, he's on the first ship that comes across the channel, because bombshell. And that was going to wreck the takeover. It did absolutely nothing whatsoever. It was a man being backed into a corner, being told that he's an EPL sympathiser and a behind P, and he was waffling and he was trying to get out. And what he did was he said, I've got something that will shut you up. And he did it. He mentioned it 3 times. He did have us going, and I did wait and wonder. And when it came out today, I just raucously belly laughed. I had a couple of friends. I had a competition solicitor phone us up, because he saw it before me, and he was choking. He couldn't speak. He said, what a joke. He said, there's nothing there of any substance. So then I went straight to a WhatsApp group that I share with you 3, because it's one group I go to in a day, and I go to it every couple of hours, and there's always common sense talk. So I know if I go on that WhatsApp without patronising you 3, there's just no crap. And if any of us talk crap, you wouldn't last on that WhatsApp. And when it come up, you know, the first thing I saw was Stephen Mitchell's comments was just saying, really? Is that it? And the pairing. No, but
because we'd already discussed this 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, of course.
We saw what was coming. And that, I think, it's probably a good time to talk about it, actually, Steve, because, you know, breaking that deal down that UEFA have made with beIN, there's totally different ways you can spin it, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, you look at the deal itself. You look at what's been discussed. I mean, we haven't seen anything from UEFA yet, but we've heard Ben telling us what UEFA are going to do and what's going to happen, which is basically that a broadcasting company's put a 600 million bid in for the broadcasting rights for the Champions League. But the UEFA executive board are going to turn around and go, we won't necessarily take the highest bid. We'll take a bid that we think best suits us. So they're not going to take the 600 million. They're going to take a lower bid for some reason. So this is UEFA, who are desperate for money, scrambling around in a time when the Champions League's been suffering along with COVID, etc., etc. But they're going to take a bid for the rights for the Middle East that's going to be less than a bid that's on the table. That's the gist of it. Now, why are they going to do that? Are they going to do that because they think it's a good idea to take less money? Well, you know, I find that strange. Or they're looking at it because they think that there is an ulterior motive that the Saudi company has. Well, they don't know that. Or is it because only a couple of weeks ago, when we had the European Super League, and there was a night of the long knives in UEFA, which resulted in the chairman of Paris Saint-Germain being put in an executive position on one of the executive boards of UEFA. And it just so happens that he's also the chairman and the chief executive of BN Sports. So you started, Liam talked about joining dots. We started joining these imaginary dots as well. We start to look at it. We talk about corruption. We talk about the ways of the world. We talk about how things break and play out. But there you've got a situation. We're going to take a less bid, probably from BN Sports, or probably from someone linked to BN Sports. We're going to do it because we think it's beneficial to us and beneficial to the region. And by the way, we've just appointed a guy who's helping to run the show at UEFA, who is the chairman of PSG, and he's also very, very high up in running BN Sports. And you just go, is this real? Is this real? And that's the way UEFA want to operate. And Mitch, we've gone round the houses before with UEFA, and we've gone round the houses with FIFA about corruption and about the wheels and how wheels get oiled and such like. But we've also got the other situation that is the other elephant in the room, which is the fact that earlier in the week the story broke that at FIFA. There's been an idea put forward that we should have the World Cup every 2 years instead of every 4 years.
Yeah.
Now, when you break that down, you actually see that from a women's football point of view, that would actually be very, very, very beneficial to women's football to have that, because we don't have a huge European Championship, Asian Championship, etc., etc. CONCACAF, South American, but to have a women's World Cup every 2 years would be good. And the idea was that if you combine the two, and you could have the women's and the men's World Cup running simultaneously every 2 years, and it should be a feasibility study that should be looked at. Now, FIFA have listened to that. It's come from Saudi Arabia, and they've said, "Oh, that's a good idea. At least let's talk about it, and let's see what the ramifications are." Straight away, the tanks are back on the loan from FIFA on UEFA's loan, because straight away the championship that we've got coming up in 10 days' time that starts, I think it's 10 days. We're going to end up. We've got the European Championships that gets played every 4 years, and in the intervening 2 years, you get the World Cup. Straight away, you've got a conflict there, and so it's FIFA trying to take a grab, or potentially trying to take a grab in the future of football, in terms of the international game, because at the end of the day, that's all FIFA have, the international game. They've shot a lot when it came to, because they were fully behind the European Super League. They gave all the right signals to the guys who wanted the European Super League. And then all of a sudden they backed off for some reason. And everybody backed off. And that's when you ended up with the three pariahs of Barcelona, Real Madrid, and Juventus, who got left at the starting gates when everybody else decided that they weren't going to be part of it. So there's all these games are getting played out, all of these games. And then somebody turns around and goes, you know what? Now there's an ally. Now the Premier League have found an ally at UEFA. Somebody else who can shout their mouth off that there's some piracy, and the real reason that they're going to take a lower bid is because of piracy. It's because they're worried about piracy, and that just plays into the narrative. That's the narrative that Ben's trying to get at, which is give the Premier League something to hang their hat on, something that they can fight back with. And we talked about it. We knew this is the sort of thing that's coming. We observe, we watch, we listen, we read among ourselves about it. We know what's coming.
We've even spent time trying to look at it from a totally purely neutral point of view and saying how would a bid like that come together, and what would UEFA be looking for? Well, they'd be looking for a platform and infrastructure. Now, ironically, this is where if BOQ was an official thing, it would have helped Saudi, probably. Ironically,
yes.
To give you a comparative example, Saudi took the F1 rights off beIN a couple of years ago. Can any of you name the broadcaster? Can any of you name the channel that the F1's broadcast on here in the Middle East? I'm going to tell you now. I reckon there's some people who live in the Middle East wouldn't know what channel to put on and which satellite system to use to get hold of the channel to watch it on out here. and that's a company that outbid beIN. And let's make no bones about it. beIN say that they let it go. They didn't. What they were doing is they were making sure they had enough money to buy the Premiership rights again. And as part of that trimming, they allowed themselves to be outbid for the F1. But I mean, I can tell you which broadcaster it is because they're based here in Dubai, even though they're a Saudi channel, and it goes out on NBC Action. But I reckon nobody back home could have guessed that in a million years, and that's the problem. So you'd be stuck with a situation that you had for the for the Asian Champions League, which is why they've broke their rights down by country.
Yeah,
because you had a situation where some parts of the world, some parts of the region didn't have a platform to access the biggest Asian conference showcase of the year. And so certainly UEFA probably wouldn't want a situation like we had when I first came to the Middle East. It was Abu Dhabi Sports had the Premiership rights here, and beIN took them off them. And there was lots of rumblings about the deal being shady way back then. But I tell you now, a lot more people in this region have access to beIN Sports as had access to Abu Dhabi Sports 1 and 2.
Yeah, good stuff. Right, lads, I don't want to dwell too much on the takeover tonight. There hasn't been a great deal of action on that score. And as always, there's plenty to talk about with Newcastle United. And I'm going to get your views, essentially, on a couple of other things tonight. First of all, Steve Hasty, we'll come to you first. This has been leaked. Now, I've got to be perfectly honest. I really do not think that is the strip. And especially the photograph of the grandmother wearing it. I mean, why on earth would that be leaked, Steve? If that is the strip, then it's absolutely awful. It really is. That really looks like a Thailand special. It looks like one you would buy at a market. One of these cheap market stalls that you find when you go to a Far Eastern country, and you can buy them, and they're snide tops. That's what it looks like. What's your take on that? If that is going to be our new strip, are you impressed, Stephen?
Yeah. Well, straight answer, no. Straight. You want a short answer? I'll give you the short answer, which we know. The photograph to me is of the lady with the top on and that top. They look exactly the same. They look as though somebody's just stuck the two of them together and made it up. That's not the sort of shirt that you could wear during a Premiership game for a start. There's too much in it. There's too much chaff, for want of a better word, flying around on that top to be. If I can guarantee on my TV, if 11 players were running around on a pitch and I was watching on my TV, it would just look like a load of static, to be perfectly honest. It's that sort of picture, isn't it? It's that sort of thing. I mean, the one thing that you try to get away from is that sort of glaring, multicolored, multifaceted sort of top. It's not right. It's not. You go most proper away kit. It's like two shades, one color and something bold because it's a contrast to what you've already got, that type of thing. And why you would also come out with an image of a second or third kit before you would ever even see the first kit, again, I don't understand. And also, to me, it's another example of people bored on Twitter or on social media trying to put something out, trying to throw shade before we even know what the kit's going to look like. And when we saw it earlier in the week when there was pictures of the grass being lifted and the turf being removed and new turf being put down, and we ended up with a there's the Puma signs gone. And what everybody's now convinced is Castori signs sitting up there, and there was mayhem. It wasn't mayhem because of what they thought was sitting behind it. It was mayhem because of the state of the roof. This is what we've come down to. We are so wrapped up in what goes on at Newcastle United that we're now talking about the state of the moss on the roof. Maybe we're growing mushrooms up there, or maybe we've got a little market garden. Maybe Eddie was have a little market garden going up there for all we know. But it's just we're into that realm of we'll put anything up and we'll talk about anything type of situation. We'll argue about anything. We'll get our brains stewed about anything to do with Newcastle United. And the irony is that the people who are shouting are the people who are giving, some of them are the people who are giving criticism that Mike Ashley's still there. And now that criticism, what's going to happen? And we're trying to get rid of Mike Ashley, and we're trying to do with damnedest. And Keith is doing everything he possibly can as just a normal fan. But to move Mike Ashley out of St James's Park and to get new owners in and to make that journey faster and quicker. And then we've got people who will still complain, and it's just like, I mean, that's where my head has been all week, and that's what I can't understand, to be perfectly honest. And then you'll get some reporter who'll come out with some ridiculous story about Rafa Benitez and being past it. And again.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll come on to that, Steve. Keith, what's your opinion on that? Then, I mean, is that the kind of top you're going to stick on and wear with pride, walking around in a, on a holiday or anything like that? It's awful, isn't it? I'm not a fan of that. Like,
I think I'd be disappointed if someone gives us to wash the car. It's just a bag of shit. I mean, it's tartan. It looks like Scottish tartan there. The letters on it look washed out. I think it's a wind up, to be fair. And what surprises is I was told today that the Chronicle ran that story. I was quite surprised. Is that true that the Chronicle ran that story?
They'll run any story though. They'll run any story, Keith.
I get that, and I've seen some stories which you just think that you see stories that you know aren't true, but to run a story like that, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, as Steve Acey's just touched on, you would never, ever do a major strip launch without putting the home strip first. You'd always start with the black and white stripes. And to not do that, to me, undermines it. Colour-wise, I mean, it's just got no identity or anything. You've described it. Very politically incorrect as being a Thailand special, but it is the kind of thing you get on a market in Bangkok. It's such a poor first attempt, and I've just read a lot of the comments that's coming up, and people are saying it's awful. I hope it doesn't happen. So, for the sake of the club and the sake of our future and the sake of revenues, I hope it isn't the shirt, because I can't see anybody buying it. But what worries us is if there's a batch of shirts where the black and white one comes out the same stable as that, because the letters look washed out.
Yeah. So, to be honest, I can only speak as I find, and I've never seen Newcastle United snide shirts on sale in Spain, in Greece, where the other places I've holidayed. I've holidayed in Russia and America, never seen any there. The only place I've seen them is Thailand, Keith, to be fair. So that's why I mentioned Thailand. For me, it's a Thailand special. I could get Newcastle tops out there.
But the thing is, I've seen them on sale in Thailand and in Singapore and this, that, and when you look at them, like you tend to get shirts that have never been created before. So often what they do out there, they make something up and then put your badges on it. Yeah, and you bring it back, you think, oh, nobody's got this shirt. So I understand exactly where you come from, Steve.
I think that's what it is. By the way, Chris A, who is on the Worldwide Show, you must have had a bad day at work, mate. I've never seen you as negative at all. He's not having a pop with us tonight. He's having a pop with the Chronicle now. But Chris, go and get yourself a beer. Go and lie in a cold room, mate, and just switch this off, because it's clearly getting on your wick tonight.
You know what surprised me? I was amazed when I saw that photograph of the shirt that it didn't have NUFC matters instead of Funny 88, because that would have just been the ultimate P take, if you know what I mean. Because that's the sort of, if we're talking about people mocking up stuff, and we've seen all sorts mocked up this week, but that would have been the ultimate. That would have been if it had your logo that you've got there on your shirt, which mine's in the wash, by the way. Sorry, John. But yeah, that would have been the ultimate one, wouldn't it? That would have. Can you imagine if that had gone all over Twitter? Would have been roasted.
I know there's a few people commenting saying you don't want to talk about the takeover, Steve. Blah blah blah. Sutty's one of them. Look, we will come back to it. I just don't want to get bogged down in the takeover for 2 hours. And we had a very severe and serious show last week, which it got good numbers, but at times it's just nice to talk about other things, and there are other things that we talk about. And this show was based really on just it's not scripted, as I said, so it's about lads having a chat, and that's what we want to get back to, really. I mean, the takeover is a very important part of the summer, but at the same time I do want to cover other stuff. So apologies to you who tuned in for 2 hours of takeover chat, but at the moment there are other things to talk about. Go on, Mitch.
No, that shirt looks like somebody was bored in a tea towel factory one afternoon, doesn't it? Just like, what are you going to do? We'll knock a shirt up. Why not? I can on it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's. I've seen the Wolves shirts. They've been released officially now, and there's just no comparison. I'm convinced that's not right. It just doesn't sit right. And to be fair to the lads at the Chronicle, haven't they contractually got to write so many Newcastle United stories a week? Probably. And so it's something which is an easy grab like that, just ticks a box. And I know people will say, "Oh, clickbait and what have you." Yeah, that's modern media. Sadly, they're driven by their websites, not the paper sales. It's a very different beast now. I wish we had some sort of vehicle that was a properly functional fans forum or something like that the club could direct the kit manufacturer to and say, sit down with these guys and let's have a chat about what works and what doesn't. Mm-hmm. And let's go through the back catalogue of all the strips all the way back to 1892. What worked and what didn't? What did you like and what didn't you like? What's in there that you see sacrosanct? What shouldn't change? What do you not mind if it doesn't change? Because there'd be absolute hell on if, for example, what had done to what Adidas did with Juventus a couple of seasons ago and give them a black and white half and half is their first strip. There'd be hell on, and that was Adidas, by the way, the company everybody talks about having back. And Adidas of late, when they get it right, but when they get it wrong, by God, do they get it wrong? Interestingly, that was a drive for the American market, by the way, to go to half and half strips.
Do you not think the people who go back to the games that they like, though, picked strips from eras that they liked?
Yes, I think they probably do. But I mean, is there many of we could remember? My dad would probably have an anecdote about the 1902 season somewhere in the family annals.
No, I was thinking more the Ginola strip. Like, if you said to me, "What's your favourite strip?" The one with the burgundy and blue, with it, because it gives me back to a period.
I think fans would appreciate if you were to pull a strip out and say, right, this was inspired by the away shirt worn by Malcolm McDonald in 1973. And I think people would get that and they'd buy into it. Puma tried a little bit of it when they tried to suggest that the horrible round collar on one of our shirts was inspired by the Face Cup shirt. And they're like, that's bollocks. We can sense that miles away. Shut up. Because if you were going to base the shirt on that, you would have done almost a carbon copy of it.
Yeah, but show that part as well, wouldn't you?
And I think being innovative with away strips and being not afraid. Then, if you've got a home strip everybody's made up with, or the majority are, you've got an away strip that the majority are made up with. Right? If you want to give us something that's straight out the tea towel factory, do that with a third strip. There'll be a niche market for that. Because you've also got to remember some of those strips that initially, when they were released, people went, ugh. Like that two-tone yellow one from the championship winning season under Houghton. That's a shirt that's got a cult following now. If you look what that goes for on eBay on the second-hand shirt market, it's ridiculous. Same with the third strip from around that time, which was the Inter Milan one, the blue and black stripes.
Yeah.
Which everybody was like, what the hell's that for? And again, it's a shirt that's got a cult following, to use a popular phrase. That people pay top dollar for when you're collecting shirts. I used to have it.
You've seen arguments in the last sort of 10 years about the width of the stripe. Not enough stripes.
Yes.
Too many stripes.
And does the badge go on a full stripe, or does it go across half and half onto two stripes?
Does the badge go in the middle?
Or is it in the middle?
Up the side.
Is it stitched on? Is it ironed on? Is it printed on? If it's quality, do anyone actually care, really, at the end of the day?
Well, I think Karen Gattis' suggestion of giving it to skipsandbins.com is probably the best suggestion made so far tonight.
We've had multi-million pound sportswear companies in Puma and Adidas get stuff wrong.
Yeah.
So, and again, this was an opportunity that we talked about with Benzaya Group. They were talking about doing a Dubai sportswear brand, and ultimately they would take over and do their own.
Do you still buy your kit? Do you still buy a kit, Mitch?
Me? No, at the minute. What I've got kicking around here are some of the very interesting non-league ones that are doing the rounns at the moment.
Because you wear your UV tops and stuff like that, don't you?
Don't anymore.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. After the Super League stuff, they've been consigned to the bottom of the drawer. But I mean, I've got me Blue Star home and away. And I've got Ashington. I've got a couple of different Ashington ones, which I'll put on, and I've got a couple of generic Nike black and white striped ones, but they're just Nike black and white Nike FC kits.
I'll get the retro shirts. And I'll obviously get a Dunstan shirt. So that's my lot. What about you, Keith? Do you ever buy the Newcastle strip these days?
I buy them. I usually buy home and away. If I like the away top. Invariably buy the home top. But I was just thinking there before, I like shirts. When I look at my shirts, like I must have 40 different Newcastle shirts. And when I look at them, I think the sponsor's important, because I like the ones with Newcastle Breweries on and the Blue Star and Exhibition and stuff. So I like, it might be an age thing, or it might be the fact that I'm a pisshead, but I like stuff with drink on, with alcohol on. But I don't really like Wonga, and I don't like that Fun 88. So whatever shirt you put that on, it doesn't like warmers, you know what I mean? So I think the sponsor's important, and that's one thing I look forward in a takeover, is to be able to get like worldwide sponsors, you know what I mean? Because I still don't know who Fun 88 are, but I just think that when you look at shirts, I think you relate a shirt to an era.
Yeah.
So in Keegan's era, I like most of them shirts. And then when I go back, I probably like an away shirt to be the Brazil colours. I've always liked just having that Brazil colours for the third.
I love the yellow one. I love the yellow retro one with the green on, that Newcastle strip. I love that one with the old badge on.
Is that like Mick Mahoney type?
Yeah, perfect. I love that. I love it. You can get them at the back page off Mick. They're brilliant. They're really, really good. They don't last in the sun, sadly.
One of the best strips I picked up about 2 or 3 years ago was one of the ones that got released onto a Spanish website that didn't have the Funny 88 sponsor on.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you what I paid for it. Like, I need my bloody brains examined. once you included the DHL shipping to Dubai, it was ridiculous.
Still less than you pay for a watch, lad. I'm sure. Or a film at your
dentist. Pay for a bloody pint in some of the bloody places on the palm.
Big shout out to Paul Castledine, by the way. I love getting messages like this. Hi, guys. Love the show. Lots of Toon Army lads here in Cyprus. Wishing you all the best. Have a good time, lads. And nice to hear from you.
Yes,
hopefully when things clear up with COVID, we might start getting to some of these places. It'd be good to go out and visit these places. Steve, are you still a strip man, or do you not bother now?
You know what? I used to... I haven't bought a strip for a while. Well, I have. I've bought them, but I usually wait at the end of the season when they're like 20 quid rather than 60. And speaking of which, I was in JD Sports this afternoon because we went into town, and the New England shirt, the blue and the white, were 100 quid.
No.
£100. I was like, what? It wasn't even like the cling filmy one that a player would wear. They were 100 quid. And I just think, is somebody taking a mick out of me here? I was going to get the kid to come over and be like a dodgy old bloke and go, can you just read that price out to us, mate? Because I think my eyes are going.
100 quid just for the top?
Just for the top.
Just for the top? For the 629 Emirati dirham on the Nike website over here. And
Yeah.
so that's
I
more
mean,
like
I like the
125
Blue
quid.
England kit. It looks good. The white kit looks good. But when you see 100 quid, you're going, what on earth? Even the junior kit for a young kid I think it was 65 for the top. You know, I'm the sort of bloke who would probably try and squeeze into that one because it was 65 instead of 100. But to be perfectly honest, I'll wait at the end of the season. I'll go to JD Sports. I'll be wandering around in that sports shop, and I would see a shirt and go, oh, it was 49, but it's been reduced to 30. Then I'll get it, and I'm a year behind. And I very rarely wear them. You know, very rarely wear them. My daughter, she might wear the strips that I buy when she's working behind the bar in the Irish Centre on a match day, and the girls like to put the Newcastle top on and have a bit of crap with the staff, you know, and this type of thing, and that's where they probably get worn more than anything. But and you know that, Steve, because you've been in the Irish Centre when Lauren's been working, you know.
Yeah.
But that's the sort of, you know, that's me. I've got all the tops from way back, you know, and all the ones that Keith's talking about, and they're the great tops. That's the top. There's £65.
This is the best top related purchase I've made in bloody ages. This, man.
You can't beat a bucket hat.
Bucket hat made out of a shirt. Player issue one.
Oh, very good. Now, where was that from?
That's from a place out here called Retro Sport Eve DXB. And they do retro shirts and things like that. Because I've made my mind up, I'm going to pick an retro England shirt up off of him. Because what I'm going to pay for an England shirt out here is going to get as a mint condition retro one, and it's going to be something a bit more unique. And I'm buggered if I'm paying £125 for a football shirt.
I love them hats. I want one.
Yeah. You know what, guys, though, that when you talk about the shirts and you talk about and Mitch, you mentioned it earlier, but I've seen some fantastic concept kits that have been designed by Newcastle fans and lads who are really, really good at photoshopping and really, really good at all of that stuff. And they've created some fantastic images and mock-ups of shirts. And we actually had this conversation with the club, if you remember, a couple of years back, Steve. We talked about it and said, why don't you get the fans involved in the design of the shirts? And of course, a kit design is designed 18 months in advance, or in fact, probably longer. I think if I remember rightly, the conversation we had with Lee Charnley at the time. But we said, get the fans involved, and it's not something new. It's not something that we're just coming out with now. It's something that we've put to the club, you know, a number of occasions. Get the fans involved. Let's design something. Let's get involved. And hopefully if we get new owners, they'll be receptive to that sort of intuitive way of integrating themselves and working with fans, working with fan groups, and work with individual fans who have got some amazing skills. And we know, Steve, because we've had friends who and acquaintances who have been great with graphics, who have ended up working at a football club, doing programs and stuff like that, and some of the designs over the years. So, you know, I look back and I think, if there's a skill out there that can be utilised by a football club, and it's a fan or a group of fans, and you can get fans to buy into it, then why not? Utilise those skills, utilise what you've got at your doorstep, integrate with the fans, get the fans involved. That's what it's all about. I mean, we're hearing various rubbish coming out of Manchester United today about, we're going to have this fans council or a fans advisory board, and which is going to be a step up from the fans forum that we had, which, by the way, the owner's never been to for 16 years. And people are going, oh, he turned up today. Wasn't that really good, you know? And it would probably be exactly the same if Mike Ashley turned up at a fans forum meeting during the week. But there has to be a start somewhere. Something, you know, it has to start somewhere. The discussion has to be seen to be taking place, and we have to get there. And when we, you know, later in the season, when we talk about where the whole, you know, governance of football is going, because I'm sure we're going to have those conversations. These are the sort of topics that we'll be bringing up.
Yeah, good stuff. An hour in already. Time flies when you're enjoying yourself. We're going to go to one of our regular segments, which always takes about 10 minutes. As always, Mitch and I have been inundated with Toon lookalikes. It's probably the biggest thing that we've done on this show, I've got to be honest, because we literally, from the moment we finish at 7:30, we are inundated. I've actually had a request from somebody as well. I'm not sure whether I've got it. Oh, here it is, I think. Here we go. Moxie Mag says, any chance of you all providing a photo of when you were late teens, early 20s on Friday's show? I think all the lookalikes of you have been done. This could help create some new ones. So I think if you use the WhatsApp group, lads, maybe send us an early photograph of you, because I'm sure, Keith, you'll have hair like I did at some point.
I had a wedge.
Well, there we go. So Moxie's come up with that idea. So yeah, I mean, we'll get photographs and we will do that, and we'll probably stick them up. But you'd be very surprised. These lookalikes still keep coming in, and there are quite a few of us. We'll start with this one first from Dougie Morris. Steve Wraith, he says it's a footballer lookalike, which I think is pretty good. That is quite good. It's not me, obviously. It's is it Flo who played for Liverpool and Chelsea? I think it is.
Fernando
Torres, yeah.
Fernando Torres,
Okay, Fernando Torres, and is that's an actor, isn't it?
It's the
Sacha
guy.
Baron Cohen.
Sacha Baron Cohen, that's right. That's right. So yeah, I thought that was a pretty good one. We'll then go on to this one, which was sent to us on Instagram by Glenn O. He just says that's another one that looks like. He said that looks like Keith, which I thought was a fairly good one. We're getting back on to 100% Mags, who's starting to become a bit of a regular on this show. Stephen Keith on the lads' night out.
On the doors.
I think that's after the takeover. Clearly, Keith's certainly dragging them in this week. He also goes with this one, another Toon lookalike, Tobin Bell from Saw and Keith Patterson, which was pretty good. Then we had this one, which was a belter from Luke, which is the guy who was playing Prince Philip in The Crown, isn't it?
Matt Smith, isn't it?
Yeah,
Matt Smith.
Yeah, and Emil Kraft, of course. So that was a pretty good one. Thanks for that, Luke. This one wasn't so much a one where he put up the pictures. This is actually a video. So if you give Albert M74413952 a follow on Twitter, you will find out what he was going on about here. This is actually a video that you can do with a thing called Reface. Steve Wraith, the new Harry Potter, and it basically puts my head on all of these particular images like a film reel. So it's well worth following Al just for that. Give Albert a follow. But I hope you're well, Albert. I always enjoy your input on Twitter. It's always good crack. Okay, so the winner this week was one we got very early, and I don't think we'll have any disagreements with this, lads. Jimmy sent us this. Mitch, I think that's fantastic. Like,
it is spot on, isn't it? Absolutely spot on.
Even the expression and everything. I've got no idea who the cartoon character is. I think I should know, but that is absolutely brilliant. So, Jimmy, thanks.
That was immediately the winner before anything else happened.
But yeah, it just overshadowed everything else. But that completes Toon Lookalike this week. Keep them coming in. Send your email, your Twitter pictures to me, Steve Hasty, Keith, or to Neil, and we'll endeavour to get them all on the show. There was a couple of others which got pinged in. Of course, this one, I think, just the fact that it looked like me on a wrestling poster, which didn't quite make the cut this week. But thanks for sending it in. And Dr. Squat Pump, of course, sent that lookalike of Shearer from Bygone Era, but it also realised that there was a mustachioed Geordie dentist on there as well. But thanks for your efforts. Keep them coming in. As I say, send them to us on Twitter, and we will endeavour to share them with the Geordie public week in, week out. I was going to include this in Tweet of the Week, but I just think it's worth touching on, and we'll talk a little bit about players, and this was from Christian Atsu. We tweeted this at the start of the week. Of course, he's moving on to pastures new. And for those of you who want to know what he said. It was, when I arrived in Newcastle almost 5 years ago, I was made to feel welcome from the start by everyone at the club, and especially by the fans. I grew to love the city, and my young family feel very at home here. Sadly, the time has now come for me to leave the club. So I just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone who was part of the Newcastle United family. Thank you to the Toon Army fans, a lot of whom I've met around the city. I'll never ever forget my time in the North East. And for sure, I will follow the results every week. Thank you for my Geordie staff, players and fans. It's been a pleasure. I love that. And I've got to be honest, that is what makes signing for Newcastle United, for any player thinking about doing it, they should read that and think, wow, for somebody from, another country to come and adapt to life in England and life in North East England in particular like that, it just makes you proud to be a Geordie. And on top of that, I want to discuss another departure, something which Lee Ryder covered in the Chronicle today. Henry Savey. Somebody who we probably only know because he keeps getting mentioned in every transfer window. Can we ever get rid of this guy? Well, we're now going to get rid of him, but his final pay packet in August, he's going to have cost Newcastle United £12 million after arriving from Bordeaux in 2016 for 5.4 million. So, Steve, let's come to you on that. Christian Atsu, first of all, what he had to say, and then Savey. How could we have got something like that so wrong?
Atsu was, I think, it was a lovely response from Atsu, and he's a genuinely decent lad for a start, and there's certain players that when they leave, they say the right things, they do the right things when at the club. He gave no trouble to the club in the entire time he was here. At times he was a regular, at other times he was a bit part player. He was alienated for the last year, which was disappointing because we could have probably used someone with his skill and attributes as the season went on, because there were holes all over our squad. But it reminded me a bit like Gutierrez when he left. He started off, he wasn't exactly, people didn't sort of like welcome with open arms. He had, there was, we got rid of him. He went on loan at one point, that type of thing. But I think that there's certain players that take to the region, take to the fans, take to the city, and build a life around what they're seeing and become part of the environment. And I think that message that he sent out basically summed him up. He's a decent, genuine, thoughtful footballer and human being. Savey, I haven't got much to say about Savey because I feel as though you buy a player. He comes from again. I mean, he came from, like you say, Bordeaux in 2016. They paid money for him. They gave him a very, very good salary, and he never got the rub of the green. He never got an opportunity. Whether or not they realised really early on that they'd made a mistake, I don't know. But literally just disappeared into the ether for 5 years. And you know what? If the club's going to treat you like that, and the club's going to buy you and use you as a commodity, and you're happy to pick the pay packet up, that's what he did. He had every right to do that. Whether from a football career it was the right thing for him, and whether he'll suddenly turn out to be an absolute world beater wherever he goes, I very much doubt. But that's the gamble. That's the risk you take in the game. And that's the risk that Newcastle United took, and they ended up with a player that they just literally could not shift. But they give him a ridiculous contract. And if you give somebody a ridiculous contract, how do you move them on? You either pay them off, and then, or you let them see their contract through. And it was a 5-year contract again. Why did they give someone a 5-year contract? They give him a 5-year contract because somebody somewhere in the club thought that this kid was somebody that they could make money on further down the line. A couple of seasons, 3 years, and move on to do something else. And from a footballing point of view, you look at it, you go, Have you got nothing in you that wants to go out and wants to play football and literally would just move on? and go elsewhere. But obviously the lad went, you know what, if they're going to pay us, and he obviously felt that nobody else would give him the money that he was on, and he was quite happy to see his contract out, and that's what he did. We could slag him off forever and a day, but is it going to do him any good? Is it going to do me any good to slag him off? No. Is it going to do me any good to have an opinion on it? Not really, because it's not going to make any difference. So, and for me, the 5 years are up. It's not my money. It was Mike Ashley's money. It was the football club's money, and they wasted it. I'd like to think that we had a setup in the future that wouldn't make mistakes like that from a footballing perspective and from a business perspective. But that's it, Steve. There's nothing really.
No. I mean, Keith. I mean, Atsu probably, came into his own for us when we needed to get back out of the Championship. He had a cracking season. He was far too good for that level, and he gave us everything. But just didn't quite cut it at the Premier League level, and from our perspective, was cast aside really by Bruce. Was surplus to requirements. But yeah, it's just nice to see a player come out with that kind of rhetoric when he leaves. We see too many players having a pop when they leave clubs, but it was nice to see.
I mean, he's left on great terms, and I think when he came, he showed lots and lots of potential. And I remember seeing him at the start. We brought a Brazilian at the time from Chelsea. I can't remember what they call that, the Brazilian. And he was Kennedy, and he was mega money. They wanted crazy money for him. And it was at that period that with Atsu and Kennedy, he had a lot of pace. And if Kennedy was doing nothing at Chelsea, and he came in. When Atsu came in, I thought he had a lot about him. But I think he's proven now that he's got a lot about him as a person, the way he's done that. Because for me, signing off like that says a lot about the man. But I was more today sort of focused on Xavier. I think you might, Steve, be a little bit harsh, Stevie Hasty, because, in fairness, Chelsea were looking at Tiote at the time. Chelsea were sniffing around buying Tiote offers at the time. And somebody, and I'll tell you it was Graham Carr, because we look back. I mean, this probably leads on to another story about journalists and Rafa Benitez, because what I pick up from this story is that Henry Xavier came to Newcastle, 5.4 million. He played in the French leagues, and he was classed as being a good player. He came in. When he played, he didn't look like a really, really bad player. He just didn't look like a really, really good player. And that's where the difference lies. But it's Newcastle's fault. And it's Graham Carr's fault. They brought him in. He played 4 games under McLaren. And then, McLaren crashed and Xavier went with that thing. But it wasn't Xavier's fault, because he came in to do a job, and he would have come in thinking, they've signed us for 5.5 million. They're paying us 32,000 a week, I believe his wages were. And you think, well, what he's going to do is going to get his game. But when they used him as a sub in years to come, he came on, and I think he scored off a free kick in a cup match. Then they played him again. And what happened is Benitez came in straight away, and people go on this week, it's in the press this week, that Benitez lost the touch. I tell you what, he took one look at Henry Xavier, and he said no. And Benitez was right, because had Benitez been there when McLaren was there, Xavier wouldn't have got in the club. He wasn't the Benitez type player. He wasn't good enough, and that doesn't make it the lad's fault. If someone signed one of your kids and they didn't make it, it doesn't make it that kid's fault. You've got to take what you can get. But Benitez, when somebody says this week that Rafa Benitez is getting old and lost his touch, I hope he stays old for the next 10 years at Newcastle. That's what I hope, because the man's got a brilliant eye for recognising a player, and he looked at Xavier and he just didn't fancy him. And what Benitez did, he tried to get him deals. He tried to get him to Travelsport, and he tried to get him away from Newcastle, and he tried to persuade him to go. He played 30-odd games for somebody. And when he was away, some clubs paid half his wages. He wasn't seen as one of Benitez's buys. It was one of these Graham Carr buys. And it's all right remembering Kabay and remembering, Gini Wijnaldum and all them kind of players, but you've got to remember the other players. You've got to remember the other players he brought in. And I think Xavier was one of them people that he just got wrong. I think Carr, he's the guy that watches them, and he's the guy that recommends them, and Newcastle buy him. But Xavier was never good enough when he came, recognised by Benitez not being good enough, and Newcastle couldn't get him off the books. And when Benitez brought him back, they put him in the under-23s, which you might think is an insult, but it's telling a message to the player about his pride and say, do you want to play the rest of your life in the under-23s on 32 grand a week? Or do you want to go and take 26 grand a week and play somewhere else? And Xavier chose to see his contract out. And it's a testimony to Benitez's judgment that all the clubs that saw him didn't fancy him, and in 5 years he's done nothing. He's cost us 12 million, and they reckon the next disaster story is Muto, because if you want to up the numbers, Muto cost more than that. He was more 8 or 9 million, I'm told, or 10. But his wages to 32,000 Xavier is 54,000. So you can sit there and say, you know, he's going to, if like on the numbers I've worked out today, if the Xavier story is 12 million, I think the Muto story is going to be 20 million. And you've got to look at it and say what Steve said earlier is we've got to be better at doing this. And to me, coaching, team selection is everything. And I go back, Keegan got it wrong sometimes, but by God, he could spot a player like, you know, like, well, Keegan wanted someone. And I think Benitez is the same. So what I want to do is lead on to that and say, why are people writing press this week criticising Rafa Benitez for brackets sitting at home? Not in, like, in my eyes, he's probably waiting for the takeover to happen. For my eyes, he brought people together that's put this deal. He brought buyers together to Newcastle. That's how much Benitez was committed to this club. And he committed to us through the Championship. He's never, ever had the kind of backing that we would give him or that the takeover would give him. But why criticise the bloke for not taking jobs at average clubs? Why? I tell you what, if he takes a deal next week or goes to Inter Milan or somebody, everyone will say, oh, well, he's not interested in Newcastle, the takeover's dead. But the reality is, Rafa Benitez is waiting for something. And to me, I think it's a slur on the man to sit there behind a journalist's pen and criticise him. So I'd like to bang that and say what you three think of that.
Listen, it is crazy, and it's crazy. It's crazy time the summer, and that's, you know, someone's always going to come out with the opposite opinion. That's, you know, that's the way journalism works. Somebody's going to write one thing, someone's going to write another, and I think the fans, certainly the fans who watch this program, can see through that story. Most people know that Rafa Benitez, you know, has unfinished business at Newcastle. And should the PIF takeover go through with PCP and with the Rubens, that Rafa is the most likely front runner. And for me, I've said, and look, Liam Kennedy put the story out this week, that essentially Rafa is waiting for this job. You know, there's no other sign. People are saying Rafa signed Muto. Yeah, Keith's just covered that. He's just covered the fact that Rafa didn't always sign great players, but he signed some good ones as well. So yeah, look, it's a silly season. That was the words I was trying to come out with. It's a silly season with stories. But you're right about that story. But look, that person we know is entitled to write what he wants, and he'll continue to do so until things change. And there's nothing we can do about that. But Mitch, your views on those two players, and because I want to get on to our next regular segment.
You want to talk about professional footballer, Christian Atsu?
Yeah.
You want to use the word professional and what it actually means. That's the ratings of a professional footballer. And somebody who could have sit and whinged and moaned about being left out of squads, made a racket in the local press and chucked his toys out the cot and got his agents doing all sorts. He's never. The only thing I've seen him doing is back in his home country, opening a foundation, building churches, schools and water irrigation systems with his own money and his own bare hands.
Brilliant.
That's a young man you want around, and that's a young man you want to be around. But if he's not good enough to play in the first team, then he's got to be allowed to ply his craft somewhere. So thank you very much, particularly for that year in the Championship. His contribution with assists and free kicks that year was vital, really. He scored actually some quite crucial goals if you look back at that season. So thank you very much, and you go with grace and good thanks, and a leaving message like that will, like I say, it should be read by anybody thinking of coming into the club about what you could be. And doesn't it wonderfully dispel the 11 Geordies on the pitch myth?
Yeah.
We'll have you if you're from anywhere, in any background, as long as we see you giving your all and being professional and doing what we would do, or we're given the chance. you're one of us, and he'll forever be one of us. And so thanks very much. He's never going to be a club legend, but that doesn't matter. He obviously cared. And Saviet, to give him his dues again, he heard much in the press from him. Have you heard much moaning, whinging? No, he's sat tight on his contract because he knows fine well he's not going to get that contract anywhere else. And that was the challenge we had moving him out, was we would have ended up paying some of his wages at another club if he'd moved anyway.
Yeah.
I've got a mate who's connected to Guingamp, one of the lower division clubs in France, that occasionally get in the top flight and then get relegated straight away. He insists that we played him in the wrong position, that he wasn't a replacement for Tiote. He wasn't a Tiote type ball winner and move it on. He was more box to box, and that's how he should have been used. So our question when we bring players like that in, what metrics are they using in the scouting system to decide, right, he could replace him or he could be an upgrade in this position? Or are they going on personal experience, what they see? Or they're deliberately buying players that they think they can mould and shape into something else? I just don't know. But he just seems to be, every now and again, every manager will buy a stinker. And they all do it. They absolutely all do it. And it happens. And sometimes a club just isn't for a player, or a situation just isn't for that player, or the system that they're playing him in, or the position that and the job they're asking him to do isn't actually his natural skill set. And when you're at the top flight, you'll either sink or you'll swim when somebody does that to you.
Yeah.
And shifting him on, the Turkish club he went to wanted him badly, but they wanted to get him for buttons, and they wanted us to pay 2/3 of his wages.
Yeah.
You know, not going to happen. You might as well see him out and see if you can shift him on and get him off the books in a cheaper way, or let him run his contract down the way he's done. But he's let his contract run down, I guess, in a very professional manner. He's just got on with it. Because the lad's been nowhere near the first team. He'd have been training nowhere near the first team. That, for a footballer, must be soul destroying. So, you know, that's the situation I see with him. It was a wrong player, wrong club at the wrong time. But that's who he goes with love and grace and all the best wishes from everybody, I'm sure.
Yeah, well said, mate. Okay, as you know, qtechshop.co.uk do a monthly giveaway. They're giving away, again, some T-shirts, some hoodies and some cups. And all you need to do is collect the clues throughout the month of June. And then we will give you a final question at the end of June for you a chance to win. And it'll be the answer into the chat. Will be the first person with the correct answer into the chat will be the winner. So this is your first clue. There you go, Super Mac, regular on Thursday nights on the show. But that is your first clue this week. And as I say, some NUFC Matters goodies up for grabs at the end of the month. So jot that down, Super Mac, and we will have another clue on next week's show. And it's time for... Kept these short and sweet this week, and we've had a lot going on, so we haven't had time to collaborate a great deal. What is Mitch doing?
Changing my cooling system.
All right.
I get frightened when you went away to get that hat. I thought you were going to come back with crotchless knickers or something.
Funny enough, that's what a few people in the chat were saying as well. There was a lot of worried people, Mitch.
It may have been done for a slight little bit of effect, yeah.
I'll get you. Okay. Okay, so we'll whiz through these ones. This one was one from last week that Steve Hasty sent us, and it was a tweet from the Premier League. Who's in your corner?
Exactly, yeah. And I thought Peter Clennell, who we met a couple of weeks ago at the match, I thought that was great. Nick DeMarco and Shaheem Fatima. Who have you got? I thought that was brilliant.
that was great. Very quick. That's a quick witted and a great response.
Got to win.
Yeah, this was Daniel.
This was me being accosted in the street, Steve. I got accosted for a photograph. So I said I would include it in Tweet of the Week this weekend. Daniel's missus asked us for a photograph, Catherine, and she wanted a shout out. And I forgot last week with all the pandemonium that was going on with Ben being on the show. So, hi, Catherine. There you go. Tweet of the week you got to mention. So big thank you to her, and it was nice to meet you. This one, Steve.
Yeah, the cat. There he is. The cat is back. Just caught Julie watching the show, and there's Julie with her specs on like me, watching the laptop. Brilliant.
I thought that was brilliant. So that's Julie Baker, of course, who's on there. She's having a little trip away to York this week. I thought I'd missed her in the chat. So, Julie, there you go. Joe Walker made you famous. And this is the winner this week.
Yeah, there we go. Meanwhile, in Sunderland, my sister's pregnant. I'm going to be your dad.
Thanks, Claire Marshall. Very good.
Well
Excellent.
done.
You've won Tweet of the Week this week.
Brilliant.
Fantastic. Keep those tweets coming in as well. If you see one nominated, and send it to me, Mitch, Keith, or Steve, and we will, as I say, endeavour to get it out up onto the show. We've got a very special show tomorrow, something which I've held on to actually for the last few years, but I'm having a day off tomorrow, so tune in 6 o'clock tomorrow night, an evening with Les Ferdinand, which was at 9 Bar in 2017. It's still very relevant, very little about what was going on at the time at the football club, a lot about Les's career and a lot about Les's past. I interviewed him at 9 Bar. It was a sellout event, so that will go up live tomorrow night. It's an hour and 7 minutes long, so I hope you all enjoy that tomorrow night. And I do want to give a shout out as well to those cult members. I know Gary Edwards got his cult T-shirt, and he was also happy to send that one in with his little daughter as well. So big shout out to Gary. I can't remember who sent me this one in. We don't do a photo of the week section, but if we did, this would certainly be it. And that is the Champions League trophy tattoo with Manchester City 2021. That if that's real, God help the poor bloke. Fantastic that. So whoever sent me in, apologies, I didn't remember who it was. Thanks for sending that in. Okay, it's time now just to chat a little bit about the transfers, which I do want to try and make a regular feature if I can over the next few weeks, because we are going to get linked with all and sundry, and people are going to get linked with moves away. I guess the one I want to talk about this week is this fella, Josh King. Obviously, it's been mentioned, in the January transfer window. It's now getting mentioned again. Are we going to see him and Callum Wilson link up? Do you think, Steve? Do you think that's possible? And I suppose we also have a chat about Danny Rose, because, I saw that absolutely hilarious article, which was fed out, from a quote from Alex McLeish of all people, saying that fans would be delighted with Danny Rose coming back.
Really?
Yeah, Keith, honestly, ridiculous. That's where the story came from. But yeah, Josh King first, Steve. What would you happily reunite those two, like they played together at Bournemouth?
You know what? He's been at Everton, hasn't he? On loan, and
now
barely got into the team, and it's a strange one. It's one of those ones where people think, well, two players that did really, really well together could resurrect it, but I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure whether that's the way to go. It was a couple of seasons ago now. The lads had injury problems. It's what we're going to be linked with. We're going to be linked with free transfers, people on the cheap, players whose contracts have come to an end. We've got a load of them ourselves, haven't we? Players who are at the end of a contract, and now I don't know whether it's because of the takeover or the potential takeover. We're now just seeing players whose contracts are in end being offered a 1-year extension because it was written into that contract and stuff like that, which I suppose in a way is probably sensible. But on the Josh King side, he wasn't a prolific goal scorer himself. He was, they seem to have a bit of a partnership. But what we've seen with Wilson when he has played it, Wilson has been more of a played on his own up front, still getting goals. And I suppose the big question is, can he continue a kind of partnership with Joe Linton if I'm allowed to mention that name, because I was going to say, if we're going to talk about season reviews, the one game I think we only had 3 good games last season. One of them was the away game at Crystal Palace, where we sat back for 80 minutes and then we scored twice. Where Joe Linton and Wilson seemed to strike up all of a sudden a partnership in terms of linking up and both scoring, and yet we never saw it again, or we barely saw it again. So I'm not too sure whether Josh King's the sort of player that we actually need, or we could find a gap for. And the reason I'm saying that is probably because I don't know what Bruce has got in his head in terms of anything to do with a formation. The entire season was wrapped up in we can't play with a 5. I've got players who've been forced to play in a back 5, and then I'm going to do it my way, and his way seemed to be suddenly going back to a back 5 for success. And I just don't know what Bruce's style. I don't know what his tactics are. I don't know what his formation is. I don't know where the personnel fit in. I don't even know what sort of personnel fit into a Steve Bruce team, to be perfectly honest. So whether Josh King falls into that, we'll find out as the weeks go on.
Just a quick one, because I'm using my phone for this. I cannot hide the link for the Pat place in the chat, but I'll hide it up on my Twitter. I'll hide it up on my Twitter as a pinned tweet.
Magic. Okay, there you go. I think I'll be buying one. You might find they'll get inundated, but I'll certainly give it more of a plug.
I'll give him the heads up. I feel a business opportunity coming on.
Good stuff. Why not? Keith, what's your take on Josh King? Would you have him at Newcastle?
Few things. I think what he's done at Everton, and that was an average Everton side this year. I mean, it's the best manager they're going to have for some time, as he's gone on to bigger and better things. But I don't think that King, when he came on, did anything. I think Fraser and Wilson have proven that getting 2 players that used to hit it off doesn't work, or doesn't guarantee when they come to the next club. So to me, Fraser's been a washout in Newcastle, and Wilson's been superb. So putting King in as he's played with Wilson, it's going to work. I don't know. I think I'd rather go and buy, I'm not saying it's the same money, but I'm saying is that somebody just said in the chat, if you could get him for a free, if you get him on a free, it depends. Depends if you're getting took over. It depends whether it's going to be Bruce with his normal team. But I think if we had Wilson at his age, I believe I'd rather have a younger striker. That somebody that was hungry and could stay fit every week, and somebody that was more of a battering ram kind of player. So I think there's worse than him, but I think there's a lot better as well. But somebody said to me, who when you talk about transfers this year, who would you take if you've got the choice of Willock or Wijnaldum? Who would you take? Straight choice. You could have one or the other, because one's got youth and one's got world experience. Before I go off, in case I don't get to speak, I just want to apologise. I said I'd do a shout out for that young lad who died down the country this week. It was about 6 weeks ago, called Liam Shepherd. The guy on Twitter is called Tim Clark. If you go on my NCSL 1892 page, you'll see I've put a shout out to anybody who can help him. But he just said, is there any way you can shout out on the show tonight? He says he's going to be watching. Tim Clark's the guy, he's the announcer down at Western-super-Mare, I believe, and this young lad died in his sleep. But what a lot of people didn't know, his dad committed suicide 3 years before that. So his mum's left without, ex-partner's gone, and obviously a son. So if anybody can do anything, what they're doing is they've got Gaza pictures and things, and they're getting a lot of memorabilia. So if anybody can do that, I was talking to Mitch and Steve Acey today, and they said, if we can do anything, we will, as NUFC matters. But it's just the kid's 11-year-old, and he dies in his sleep. And he was a gem of a kid who he baked cakes for the local police. He was doing charity things in the name of his dad, and he raised a lot of money for charity himself. And an 11-year-old to pass away like that, I just wanted to reach out to fans today to say, if any of us can get hold of Tim Clark, who's watching tonight, and send him anything at all, whether that's offer of help, donations, or memorabilia, then you'll get it on my page, which I did two tweets for yesterday.
Great stuff. Yeah, good stuff, mate. Marty, if you've got anything that you want to donate to the food bank, I suggest you either contact the food bank's Twitter or contact Steve Hasty, Old Hetonian on Twitter, and they will be able to help you out with that. But anything that you want to donate for the food bank is gratefully accepted. The T-shirt is got about 10 minutes to go. It's on my Twitter. Basically, everything is my fault T-shirt, which is a one-off. And if you want to bid for that, I think it was at £50. You can do. All proceeds go to the food bank. Got about 10 minutes. Get bidding at Steve Wraith, and that will be some more much-needed funds for the food bank. And speaking of which, it's time for another feature. Did have a late entry actually for this, which was this one from Paul Gillespie, who was actually referring to that T-shirt. He says, "It's the worst T-shirt I've ever seen. You're an embarrassment." I did reply to the guy and explain that it wasn't me who designed them. It was John from QTech, and that all the proceeds went from the food bank. I'm still awaiting a reply, but that was a late entry. But the winner this week was this guy who has been on before. It has to be said. Pub. _ down the pub, lost all credibility knocking about with that tosser mind Supermac. So he's actually tweeted Supermac, copied me in, but he just seems to be on a one-man mission just to have a pop at me each week. But that's twice now, mate. You're on a hat trick. I may have to get some kind of present if people make it 3 times on the show. But that is Troll of the Week. And as I said a little bit earlier, we will be mixing things around over the course of the summer. We are going to be having some, time off. People will want a bit of time off during the summer, and me included. So don't forget, tomorrow, 6 o'clock, it's not live. It is a pre-recorded show from 2017 at 9 Bar, Les Ferdinand. But set a reminder, it's loaded on the channel now. And well worth a watch. That it's well worth a watch whenever you can get a chance to watch it. And one of the shows that will be resting until the start of the season is Ladies' Night, but it will be replaced on Monday nights by the Steve and Holly Show, which will be obviously including guests. Holly has joined the channel officially, obviously a couple of months ago, but she's been fantastic. And I think those of you who will, watched Matchday Lives in particular will realise, for such a young age, she's very accomplished. She's very good at what she does. And I'm looking forward to chatting Newcastle United with her on a Monday night throughout the summer. Tuesday nights will remain the same, of course. Me and Liam Kennedy will still be doing Tuesdays. Wednesday nights will still be the Retro Show. And Thursday nights will still be me, John Gibson, and Supermac, focusing on England and Newcastle over the next few weeks, of course. There will be some special guests, a lot of ex-players lined up throughout the summer. Lee Clark will be coming on. Nobby Solano will be back on Sunday. So quite a lot coming up over the course of the next few weeks. So a big thank you as well to the sponsors, Spider VPN, who have agreed to continue their sponsorship through June, and also a big shout out to skipsandbins.com, who have agreed to continue their sponsorship through June. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website www.skipsandbins.com, easy contract, free and pay as you go waste collection. So Bobby, as you can see up in the top right hand corner. Also a big shout out to John at qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, and to Jab Signature as well. Google Jab Signature and Google Spider VPN to find their relevant websites. First time visitor to the channel, then just roll over the Newcastle Legends logo, and you can subscribe for free. Hit the thumbs up to hit the like button, click share to share to your social media, and drop in the comments to speak to like-minded Newcastle fans. And don't forget, the Food Bank website is still operational throughout the summer. NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk. Just drop into that website and make a donation. And Steve, I think you have the watch there, which you've got the watch. Which, if people donate to the food bank through the summer, they enter into a prize draw to win that watch, and that could be yours in the first week of August. But you've got it there, Steve.
Got it there. It's beautiful, beautiful timepiece. It's there. There's the back with the beautiful crest on it, and there's the front that you can see there. Quite weighty as well. It's got a lovely strap on it. I'm trying to move it there. You can see. I can
Put the back on.
Sorry,
put the back on, mate.
There you go.
That's a one-off, that as well. Fantastic.
It is.
It's our logo, isn't it?
That's your logo.
Right.
Turn it the right way. There you go. There's the nice little logo on the back. Beautiful timepiece, comes in a nice gift box as well. And what I should say, Steve, is you don't have to keep making £1 donations, because for every pound that you donate, whether you donate £5, £1, £10, every donation gives you an entry. So if you donate £10, you've got 10 entries. So you don't need to think, I've got to do 10 times an entry. You know, it's literally, you make a £10 donation, then that's 10 tickets, if you like, in the raffle, for want of a better way of describing it. But Keith, I don't know whether John's told you, but you're going to make the draw for this. You're going to choose the winner out of the pot of numbers that John's been collecting over the weeks, and you're going to do it at the pool night that we're going to hold at Spot White on the 6th of August. So I don't know whether you were aware of that, but you've been earmarked for that task.
Yeah, and there we go. NUFC Matters 24-hour charity pool night, Friday the 6th of August, 12 p.m. Goes on for 24 hours. We're all getting involved in that. But yeah, you're doing the draw there apparently, Keith.
That's right. And I can tell you that Gordon Stein's coming up for the night. He's travelling up from Surrey. Never been seen before. I've never met him anywhere. So he's coming up that night. Peter Baker's coming over as well. So there's a load of us coming over. And I guess I've taken it. And I'll be amazed if I don't pick my own ticket out, because I would like to wear that watch.
Oh, the trolls will have a field day if you do that, lads. Hear me out. The wood. Mitch, just your take on the Josh King situation, Mitch, and I guess as well, just a few of the other ones. I mean, you might have heard Lee Clark earlier in the week praising the Celtic centre half. So, what's your take on the transfer situation this week?
What I was just about to say before there, if people haven't seen show with Clarky on with you and Liam, it's worth a watch if you want to understand the madness of football in the MENA region. Have a little listen to what Clarky's got to say, and if he does draw a team over here, you'd be sure of a very, very warm welcome from a load of Geordies who are here anyway. I know he knows a couple of lads out here anyway, so it would be good to see him. Josh King, do you know what? The lad spent half a season on loan at Sunderland and didn't want to go back, did he? So it shows he must be sensible. Joking aside, sometimes it does work when you bring. You've got to look at the balance of the squad. Are you bringing a player in to be a constant first team player, or are you bringing somebody in who's going to bring not just experience and haven't played with somebody before, but bring somebody in who's comfortable with the group? Because we've got a little collection of ex-Bournemouth people there now, not just on the playing field, but in the back room as well. And you've got to look at the bigger picture of what is that collective group. I saw people chirping about the England friendly through the week, saying it was stupid and what's he playing these players who he hasn't called up for. Well, what he's doing, he's keeping the group together because he can make injury replacements all the way up to the first day of the tournament. And what happened? Trent Alexander-Arnold pulled out with an injury. So one of those players who was kept as part of the group, who got a run out, who's still being part of the collective, they haven't said to those players who weren't selected for the initial squad, right, off you go, and absolutely torpedoed the confidence out of them. They've kept the group together, and now there's an opportunity for somebody else to come into the squad and who could theoretically, but I'm not holding my breath, be somebody who could step up to the plate and come into a team late, and make a difference to the team in the tournament. So when you've got a Premier League squad, it's the same kind of thing. And what does that individual bring in terms of personality, his ability to interact with a group? And so would he do any worse than Carroll, for example? I don't think so. So I think if he was to come in at the right kind of price, if it was a free, fantastic. I don't think I would be too upset. I certainly wouldn't want a transfer budget blown on him, though. That would be daft. That would be daft to hang your hat on that. I know Clarkey had a lot to say about the centre back and about what plans Celtic had for him when they sent him to Kilmarnock to play for Clarkey, and they had him playing in centre midfield so he could improve his ball skills and then drop him in as a ball playing centre back later. It's always difficult to judge players coming from Scotland now. Van Dijk, for example, you could say the same thing about Van Dijk as what people are saying about INL. Has he really been tested? Is he really that good? The lad captained his country at 19-year-old. He cannot be a mug. And also he must have a hell of a personality. So I think if we were to get him for the money they're talking, I think it's a steal. I think it's an absolute steal. My worry is we do this with transfers. We'll make our intent known and then let somebody slip in and outbid with. And that concerns me. But I think he would be a cracking addition to the squad and a cracking replacement for people exiting. And if you want to, again, you want to look at the group and how we can improve the squad in every position. And I certainly think he will be an upgrade. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And the word is he's pretty set on coming to Newcastle United, which that would be good too.
Well, he's going to hear good things from everybody apart from Ryan Fraser. So there's no doubt that Richie's going to sing the club's praises, as is Callum Wilson. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Okay, we've got about 15 minutes left, lads, and one more regular section to get in, and it is my old favourite. Yes, big thanks to Joe Walker, Toon Tipster. He's in the chat tonight, and obviously no Newcastle games to talk about for a couple of months, but plenty of football still, and it is the Euros which is upon us. And he goes, well, folks, here we go. It's June the 4th, 2021, so I thought I'd look forward to Euro 2020. The tournament kicks off next Friday when Turkey take on the mighty Italy at 8 p.m. Until then, I thought I'd share the early prices for the tournament with you all in case you want to get in amongst the early value. France are tournament favourites to go all the way at attempting 9-2. Surely they won't be far away, he says. Next come England at 5-1, but seems we're taking 18 right backs and no forwards. This could prove a big ask. Next come Belgium at 6s, with Germany and Spain following at 7s. For any Welsh mag, you can get 200-1. And our friends north of the border are 250-1, although I'm sure the world-class Ryan Fraser will show the world what he can do before returning to St James's Park injured and in a mood. England are favourites to reach the final at 11-5, with a decent 11-8 on offer if you think they can get to the semis. Cheeky food bank bet, Mr. Hasty, I think, if you think we'll crash and burn. 14-1 for us not to get out of the group. Harry Kane is favourite to be top scorer at 11-2, with Lukaku, Mbappe and Ronaldo following close behind. But that's enough about Amanda's new front line for next season. I'll be in touch over the tournament and we'll check in with England games, price changes and selected odds throughout the month. And he says, don't chase your losses. Take care all, Joe. So big thank you to Joe for that. And as always, bet safely. And Sutty, I've got no idea what that tune's called. I'll have to ask our guy who does all of these kind of things. I'll give him the idea, and he comes back with the funky tunes and the videos and make sure that they're free. So well done to Media Arts again for providing something which entertains people. Let's finish off on the Euros. Steve Hasty. Trent Alexander-Arnold's out. He's just announced it on his Twitter. I think Tom Lynch sums it up for me. Always overhyped England. I can't see England getting to the semis or the final. I think they will get out of the group, but it's a strange squad selection for me, and I'm not convinced that we're going to do well at all.
Disappointing when it came out, and I looked at it and I thought, we've got an abundance of great central midfield players and midfielders, and he only picks 5. And yet he seems to have gone an abundance of strikers and an abundance of fullbacks and central defenders. And I just kind of weigh it up. I don't know whether Southgate feels as though that the midfield can be sort of filled with wing backs, and so he just needs a couple of holding players, and he can play 2 holding players in midfield and have 5 to choose from, and then the striking situation baffles me intensely as well. I don't know whether Grealish is a striker or a midfielder. I haven't been following, because of the way the season's been. I haven't been following the German football like I normally would, because I love to go to Germany, with my pals and watch a game or two. I don't actually know how good Bellingham is, and Sancho for me. Again, a player who everybody was shouting about the season ago, and now Man United are wanting to buy, and whether or not he's even going to get a game. So I find it baffling. I mean, in terms of what I'm looking at, you're looking at teams that are countries rather, and squads, and you're looking at, this is Europe. This has been a ridiculously compact season to begin with. You've got the injury to De Bruyne that again, Steve, because I was out with you, I didn't even get a chance to watch the Champions League. I think I spent the first half trying to walk me way from the Dog and Parrot to the Haymarket. I spent the second half standing at the Haymarket, getting off a bus because I thought I was going to puke up, and then getting on a bus again halfway home. So that was my Champions League. I got in, and it was about 15 minutes to go, and apparently I said hello to everybody, told them I all loved them, and then I went to bed. So
if it makes you feel any better, I got in. I demolished a Domino's. I ate more than I should have done. I managed to see the first 25 minutes of the Champions League through bleary eyes. I then set record, and I was in bed by 9 o'clock, much to the relief of everybody. So I watched it, and I managed to do a proper Likely Lads special. I managed to avoid the Champions League score and watch it in the morning. So I was delighted. But,
I didn't even know what the score was when it got to about 2:30 in the afternoon, man. In the morning. But I remember at one point you said, I'm only staying till 6. And I went, I'll stay till 6 as well. And then I think it gets to 8:30 and we're like, oh yeah, I think now's the time to go. But what I'm getting at is that I heard De Bruyne's injured, the players have been wrecked. We've got Trent is out. We didn't. This is another thing, by the way. We had press guys who were convinced that Trent Alexander-Arnold wasn't even in the squad at the beginning of the week. I followed them. I watched what they were saying. They were by the time the squad was announced on Tuesday, they were destroying the kid. He wasn't going to be there. It turned out that he'd been told 3 weeks ago, A, he was in the squad, and B, I went back and I looked for those so-called top-class reporters, and I looked at their tweets, and they were all gone. All those tweets that said Trent Alexander-Arnold is out of the squad on that particular morning, they all deleted their tweets. And this summed up the press for me. This summed up the way that they hound somebody, the way that they go at things, the way that they convince us that they know right. They know what's going on. You people don't know what's going on. And then as soon as they're caught out, the first thing they do is to delete all their tweets. For me, if I'm going to put money at, there was a country that wasn't mentioned. My money's on Italy. I don't know why. I just have this thing. It's Mancini. He's pulled together a squad of players that, for me, are not necessarily top class, but as a squad, I think that with what you get with Italy is you'll get either they'll be absolutely dog, or they'll be world beaters. And I just feel as though Mancini, the passion that Mancini has, and the way that he's built them up from what was a dodgy situation with Italian football, I just have this nagging feeling about the Italians, the Azzurri. I like the way that sometimes they turn up at tournaments and the passion that they bring, and I love the passion of a Mancini on the touchline as well. So I think the Germans, I'm not too sure with Joachim Löw. The rest of European games, I think they're all over the place. The French, is it a swan song for Didier Deschamps, the water carrier as he was built and named by Eric Cantona many years ago, and that he's brought forward. But I'm gonna hang my hat on the Italians.
Okay, I'm getting wrong off some people in the chat, Keith. So I will come to you and ask you who your money is on in the Euros, and then ask you if you have any updates on the takeover, because people are saying surely. Well, Andrew, there you go. He says there must have been some updates regarding the takeover that Keith wanted to tell us about. So I'll keep you happy, and I will keep you happy, Andrew. So who's your tips for the Euros, Keith? And what would you say with regards to the takeover? Is there anything of any relevance this week?
On the Euros, I went and watched the friendly last week, and I found it. I was in a pub, and I was surprised at what little warmth there was. Because when you go back to the Euros when Shearer and Sheringham were playing, remember that Euro then? What was that? 96?
Euro 96.
When you remember that, and I don't know to show me age, but like we were buzzing. You'd have things on your cars, you would have shirts on, and you'd go down the pub and you wouldn't be late, and you were out all night and you didn't come back, it was finished. That seems to have massively gone. I know it was only a friendly the other night, but there was nobody in the pub had any desire or any feelings for it. It was just dead. So for me, I think, I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's football, I don't know whether it's the lockdown, I don't know what it is, but it just doesn't seem any oomph for this tournament. Normally, I would say Germany will take some beating, but there's a guy who'll be watching tonight called Ed Janssen, who's a Dutch lad, and if I told him Germany was going to win, he'd never speak to us again. So if Holland's still it, he honestly, he won't let us ever say anything German. But I don't see England win it. I don't see France win it. Holland. What about Holland?
Yeah, it's a good show.
So I'm going to pick Holland for you, Eddie Janssen, and I'm going to tell you all to get your money on Holland. On the takeover, we're going back over things. It might save me a lot of tweets, this, because I sit up for hours saying this. People are asking me what will come first. And the answer to that is, what will come first is depending what happens with the lawyers. So if the lawyers, if I was in charge, which I'm clearly not, and some people, such as some solicitors, they don't have a clue about competition law, they've gone out the way to say what my relevance is. If I was running it, and it was my case, my football club, I would try and run the competition action first so that you get disclosure, and the disclosure will give you the bullets to win both arbitration and competition. Steve Hastie's got online this week, and people say, well, Steve Hastie's already telling people that arbitration won't sort anything. And Steve's laughing because you know that when you say anything, it's taken in a context. But the reality is that the arbitration is to decide separation. The judge has said it's just going to decide separation. And it's not going to decide all the bullshit that people are putting out about piracy. That's not going to come into it. So if the arbitration runs and we win separation, then it's going to make it damned hard to stop any takeover because they're going to know what's coming with the competition action. But if you're asking me what I'd rather see them play some tactic, get Nick DeMarco to be ill or whatever, and I would rather the competition action came first, that the arbitration was delayed, because I think if the competition action comes first, we nailed on, we will win everything and we'll get a takeover out of court. That's what I think. But I don't control it. And you can ask us, I'm blue in the face. And what I keep giving my answer now, Liam Kennedy's learned this is, just say to them, let's just wait and see what happens.
Yeah, fair enough there, Andrew. I hope you got the answer you wanted. I've just been sent these before I asked Mitch for his Euro stuff, and just been sent these on Twitter by Geordie Critics. And this is apparently some more Castore potential strips. Now, that looks a lot smarter.
That's better.
I've got to be honest.
Like that?
I love that.
Yeah, I do. I like that.
I love that one. This is the third strip.
Nah, don't like that.
That'll be one that grows on you. I've got to be honest.
Nah.
That's quite... It's quite...
Nah.
It's not garish.
Me nana's washed that. That was
I like that one.
That's the best shirt. The other one, I mean, it's like bright orange. My nana's washed it out. I like that. I think that's
the home strips, very bold stripes.
Yeah.
I do like that. But I mean, again, are these right? Are these fakes? Who
Where's
knows?
the blue one at? Where's the blue tartan one at?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that in itself tells its own story. They look more likely to be leaked strips, maybe. But go on, Mitch.
What I like about those strips is that whatever combination we put to shirts and shorts, we'll be playing majority in black and white no matter what.
Yeah,
and I quite like that idea. You know,
I love the color. I love the color as well.
So if that is, potentially the design, I wouldn't have a problem with any of them. To be fair,
Don't like that at all.
No, big thanks to Johnny Critics for sending us that on Twitter. Anyway,
I think I agree with you, Steve. I think if that's the third shirt, it'll be a grower. It'll be one of those ones where you get an initial reaction and then people see it in the flesh and it may be perceived a little differently.
Yeah, Chris, we can't come to that question, I'm afraid, mate. We haven't got time. We just want to have Mitch's input on the Euros, mate. I want to go and enjoy the rest of Friday night. Gareth
Southgate's squad selection tells me he's playing three at the back with wing-backs. He must be, because he's picked... People were saying he's picked 4 right-backs, but what he'd actually picked was he picked 2 players who played for that club regularly, either as a right-sided part of the 3 or as a right wing-back in Walker and James. They're almost identical players, just different in age. You've then got Kieran Trippier, who everybody forgets has won the league in Spain with Atletico Madrid this year, and he's played nearly every game, and he's in the running to be the player of the season. So you cannot be sniffy about selecting a player in form like that. And he works well either as a traditional fullback or as a wing-back. And the same with Alexander Arnold. He's a right back, plays as part of a 4 at Liverpool, but they reckoned he was defensively a little bit iffy. Well, that doesn't matter if he's playing as more as a wing back. It's less of his role. I mean, obviously he's not going to go now, but that selection, picking so few centre mids as well, for me, gives his team selection and his formation and tactics away straight away, which seems quite weird to me to show your hand that early by selecting a squad like that. He's also taken Henderson and Maguire, who both had doubts for the entire tournament.
Crazy that, like.
Yeah. That's a real big gamble. For Maguire in particular, who hasn't had the best of seasons, in my opinion, is it worth taking that risk, carrying him into the squad? Would we not rather have a fit centre-back? Or another player, because we've got players who can play different roles in there if we're going to play 3 at the back. Henderson's a different matter, because I think as he's matured as a player and a person, he's become a very different beast at Liverpool. Yeah, it sticks in me craw a little bit to say it, but the guy is a top class professional in lots of ways, and so maybe if you're gonna carry 1 risk into the tournament, but carrying 2 seems a bit much for me. So that and. Going forward into the tournament, I've got to say, the thing about the Netherlands that sticks with me is they've got players there who've really not played full seasons for their clubs for one reason or another. And a lot of the young lads that are playing for them will be hungry. They'll be hungry to make a point. They didn't look too good from what I saw them against Scotland through the week, but these friendlies aren't about that. They're about getting your squad ready for the tournament. The results are almost irrelevant, and so I look at that Dutch team and think you're dangerous. You're a dark horse, because there's players in there who will have hunger, who will want to prove a point, and the squad's quite young, and that makes for a dangerous squad for me. Yeah,
I would agree. I do just want to finish off by dedicating tonight's episode to Geordie Carter, who was Jason Carter's father. It's the 3rd anniversary of his passing today, and he just said, would we be able to put this photograph up on the show? This was his 70th birthday when they took him on a ground tour. But Geordie Carter, Jason Carter, who's been a big supporter of the show over the last 12 and so months. Thinking of you, Jason, and I'm sure you're having a drink for your dad today. So we're going to dedicate the show today to him. So lads, that's it. 2 hours and 5 minutes. Cracking show. Really enjoyed it. I hope you have a good weekend, and let's see what the next 7 days bring. And I look forward to seeing you all again next Friday. Take care, lads. Good night.
All
See
the
you
best.
later.
See you.
Bye.
Good night now.
Head back with your critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back